Well, hello and welcome to this month's Herbal Hour. Let me tell you a little bit about me. My name is Mary Bourne. I'm a traditional naturopath. I've been teaching about natural health for 45 years, which, yeah, it's a long time. And so along the way, I have acquired a bit of knowledge, and I consider myself a learner teacher because I feel that things evolve and you constantly have to be learning new things and understanding new things, but also to consider the wisdom of the ages. And so I try to share that in my videos. I have many videos on my channel, and you can find me at Maryborn-ND on YouTube. So if you are interested, I have a plethora of videos about herbs, about natural healing, about good food, so many things. And I have 3 formats. This is one of them. This usually is quite lengthy because I discuss how the body works. So this particular one is talking about the nervous system and how the nervous system responds to shock and panic. It generally lasts an hour. That's why it's called Herbal Hour. I have another venue in my YouTube channel called Health to Home. And that's a weekly presentation that lasts about 20 minutes. And I discuss hot topics, herbs, health, and how you can support your body with natural remedies. The third thing is kind of a whimsical type of channel called Gardening with Granny. And I love to garden, and so I share little tips. Generally, this particular venue lasts maybe 3 to 5 minutes, but if I take you on tour, sometimes can last 20. So let's dig into the topic today. We're discussing shock and panic and how our body tends to deal with these particular concerns. So we have been inundated with so many shocking stories, floods, tornadoes, train wrecks, food distribution centers being on fire. We've been exposed to thousands of cattle being destroyed, chickens being destroyed, eggs not available. And, some of these disasters are like one right on top of another. And oftentimes they affect entire neighborhoods and communities. And so 911 can't always be at our particular house or where we are to support us. So we should learn some techniques on how we can be more resourceful in supporting our own needs and perhaps even helping those that are running into problems. So shock and panic during an emergency, many people will be extremely traumatized. Even just watching it on TV can be traumatic. Now, those that are going through the process, they will require treatment for shock or injury. And so maybe you have a minor bump or you have a cut or something like that. I have some videos dedicated to particular incidences like bruises, cuts, what you can do in those situations if you've been burned, whatever. and to be able to assess whether or not you can handle it or you need to be helped by somebody else. So if you're self-reliant, mentally and physically prepared for emergencies, you'll have a better chance of staying calm. Those people that know a few things about first aid and how to keep a wound clean and all that are going to feel like, okay, I can be of help. And when you're calm, you can help others remain calm. You can help others before 911 can get to them. So what is self-reliance? Well, in modern times, too many people feel that it is somebody else's responsibility to take care of them in an emergency and otherwise. I mean, other people, it's amazing how we have chosen the easy way out of letting somebody else take care of it. It's somebody else's problem, whatever. Unfortunately, this entitlement attitude is not a healthy adult approach. This is like a 2-year-old, wah, I need my mommy type thing. When, you sometimes you just have to grow up and put your big boy pants on and accept responsibility. And sometimes it's not only for your own welfare, but for those who you're supposed to be responsible for, like your children or those that need your help. Look around, you're not the only one dealing with this situation. So knowledge, skill, and preparation are essential and must be acquired before an emergency occurs. It's not during the emergency that you acquire this knowledge. So what happens during these involuntary reactions? So the body's reactions to trauma are involuntary and not the result of conscious choice. In fact, these reactions hijack higher brain functions and cause us to react on instinct rather than rational thought. Now, sometimes this is a good thing because it allows split-second action that can make the difference between life and death in a crisis. So, it's like you are running and you run into a cliff and you realize, whoa, wait a minute, I can't keep running because I will fall off this cliff. And that may seem like a silly hypothetical thing, but I'm sure that you can apply that quick reaction, quick response, driving along and you have to slam on your brakes. Often it's automatic for you to fling out your right hand and support the person who's your passenger. So perceived danger comes into the body and enters the hypothalamus, which is in the head and in the brain. And certain hormones are released from the hypothalamus. They're triggered by this danger response. And you can take a screenshot and look at these hormones in depth and what they do and how the body responds to these hormones. But I did do a video on this response and what happens. So the hypothalamus then triggers the pituitary to act. And now the pituitary is also in the brain, but it is a hormone triggering system, basically. And it triggers the adrenal. So this is called the HPA axis. So you might look that up and Google it and see what that does. I really encourage you to do some research. Don't just count on what I'm telling you, but also do your own research. So the adrenals are handling the stress response, and how it handles it depends on whether or not you're already stressed, whether you have a solid response technique, whether you have been eating properly, if you've been abusing or not taking care of your body, not getting the sleep you need. All of these things play into how the body responds to a particular stress. And these are instinctive reactions. So we are intuitively dealing with this particular pressure. Our body does this without us even knowing, sort of like blinking, breathing, although breathing you can have some control over, heartbeat, all of these things are instinctive responses. And I went over this particular diagram in a recent video. We call this the fight, flight, or freeze pathways. And your body can either go into any one of these three, but it can also blend these, like if you blend freeze and flight, you evade, you bend, you surrender, you just, okay, whatever you think type of thing. So you're not really frozen, but you're following somebody else's direction without using your own intelligence, without ever even thinking, is this real? Is this factual? Oftentimes people follow this direction when they are scared. Now, in the freeze fight section, there's lack of heart, sudden aggression. So you go from, I don't care, to all of a sudden bursting into aggression. Then in the space between flight and fight is the feelings of betrayal, sabotage. Sometimes you can turn on somebody and not even think about the ramifications or the consequences of fighting against that person. So there are varying degrees of these particular emotions, and generally speaking, fight is a state of anger. You want to fight back against what is hurting or threatening you, and it can be a good thing. None of these things are bad. These are simply reactions. What you follow through with those reactions can be either good or bad. So when you flee, you just want to run away. And sometimes that's what you need to do. If there's some flood or something, you need to get to the high area, or you need to flee from tornadoes and that type of thing. Freeze, when we perceive that fight or flight is not possible, then we just like freeze. But freeze can also be considered pause. In other words, I'm going to pause a moment, I'm going to take a couple of breaths, and then I'm going to see what action needs to take place for me to move through this particular incident. So then if you see things with a positive response, you can move through it with as little harm or damage as possible. So the stress response is not the enemy. It is designed to maximize the ability of the body to perform in difficult circumstances. You're doing the best you can, the best you know how. But if you can train yourself in better know-how, you will make better choices. So the key is to use the stress response to take constructive action. In other words, the best choice possible. And you sometimes have to kick your conscious mind into gear first. So in other words, your unconscious mind is taking over, your innate responses are there. And oftentimes you have to think about what is the best choice here. And so then you have to move from instinctive to thought. So actions taken in panic, they usually make things worse. So let's talk about the normal stress recovery period. So if you look on this, you're going along, everything's okay, and all of a sudden you're traumatized or you're shocked by some occurrence. And your body goes into immediate reaction. And in a state of alert, you stay in this hyperactive moment. So your blood pressure rises, your pupils dilate, your breathing increases, you're in hyper awareness. And then you take stock of what's going on and you start to relax, you start to come down to what the body is, your respiration comes into more normal activity, your heart rate decreases. And then you go actually below the normal stress response area where your hormones are below activity now. And the normal course of action would be recovery. But what if at this low point you were hit with another stressor? So in other words, your body is now at a low point and you have to make decisions when you're already exhausted from the previous experience. That's when a base of good nutrition will take over, automatic responses that you've learned how to deal with, like taking deep breaths and assessing the situation. Those are all things that can help you in the recovery process. So the problem arises when there is no recovery time. Stress upon stress with no breathing period. I think you've experienced that. I also think that there's too many entertainments that causes the stress response to react. And oftentimes during that, what we call entertainment, our body is not breathing properly. We are not feeding ourselves the nutrition it needs, like B vitamins, to deal with the stress that we're putting our bodies through. Then there's, weather. I mean, who hasn't gone through that freeze that we had this year? It ruined some people's homes. It ruined their landscape. So, that there's that constant fear thing. And if you have a lack of knowledge compounding this, or the wrong kind of knowledge where the media is telling you one thing and people actually at the scene are really telling you a different story. So there's that complexity that you don't really know what's going on. A lot of times your basic needs are not being met. There's not enough water, there's no food or shelter, bad air quality. And you're concerned for loved ones. Maybe you've been separated somehow from your loved ones. And safety for injury, for yourself, for others, so all of these demand the stress response to take place. So let's talk about handling trauma. So here's part one. When something bad happens, stop. Take a deep breath. Take a couple deep breaths. Try to relax. Assess the situation. Ask for help. This may be praying. Think positively. Force your mind to repeat affirmations like everything's going to be okay. Even if you're telling somebody else everything's going to be okay, you're hearing it as well. And, you know, those people who have faith, ask for God's help. You know, with God's help, I can handle this. Now, let's talk about positive versus wishful thinking. Positive thinking is not a passive idea in your brain, dreaming things are going to be okay. It's a thought you connect with positive emotions, which leads to constructive action. Positive thinking includes awareness. I'm aware of what's going on. I can do something about this. Being prepared aids positive thinking. You have choices. Now, a lot of times those choices have to be made before the disaster. So those choices include proper eating, proper resting, being prepared with food and water, maybe a bug out bag, maybe, you know, something where you feel that you have control. Because the biggest thing is you don't feel like you're in control. Now, part two of handling trauma is take inventory of the situation. What's going on? How can I make things less dangerous? Focus on what you need to deal with at the present moment. Don't let yourself go into the rabbit hole of what could happen. Oh, you know, the worst case scenario. Get busy, look around for something constructive to do, and start doing it. So always have in your mind, what can I do right now? How can I deal with this at the moment? And part three of handling trauma, cooperate with others. You know, a lot of times the community is dealing with this disaster. Get with them, see who needs help the most. Create teamwork. Figure out how you can get from point A to point B by working together. Sometimes you're feeling scared, admit it. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm scared. And another person will say, I'm scared too. And I say, well, okay, well, what can we do about it? Now, sometimes it's God that you're praying to, that you're confiding in. Say, oh God, what can I do? Please guide me in helping me decide what I can do about this situation. Keep breathing. That's the biggest thing, is because oftentimes when you're traumatized, you are panting, you're doing short breaths. And even if you're injured, the best thing to do is to keep breathing. So don't be afraid to feel your feelings and take time to cry or express them. Helping others. Now, be part of the solution or get out of the way. You know, understand trauma and its symptoms. Calm yourself down first before trying to help others. You know, don't go into a panic state saying, what can we do? What can we do? If people are dazed or confused or paralyzed, like can't move because they simply are in shock, then it's up to you to be proactive and say, okay, listen to me. Let's take some deep breaths and let's figure out how we can work through this situation. And keep your sense of humor. You know, if you can laugh about something, it is far better. Now, a lot of times, laughter and humor are due to shame. And that's, you know, that's a whole different story. So common reactions to traumatic experiences are confusion, disorientation, and denial. Sometimes you don't even remember. Somebody will say, what happened? and you're still in shock and you can't recall it, maybe you can say, just give me a minute, let me get my thoughts together. Inability to make rational decisions is top on the priority. People do dumb things. Fear, panic, extreme anxiety, and irritability. We're seeing more and more and more of this. And these aren't reactions that are often immediate. These are responses that occur after the fact. And then people react, and you say, why did they do that? And that's because something triggered that response again. You know, depression, apathy, sadness over loss, these can take years. Crying, screaming, or overly attack. How many people you know that just, you want to say, will you shut up? You know, but that's their nervous response. And the best thing to do is say, take some deep breaths. You know, a lot of times you can't chatter when you're taking deep breaths. So, and then there's the speechless or passive or withdrawn. I'm telling you, the best thing to do is human contact. Arm around this person if they allow it, hand on their shoulder, letting them know that somebody is there. And when they feel safe, they'll be able to come out of this shock, numbness, stupor, or whatever it can be. Because a lot of times you say, this can't be real. I mean, we're seeing school shootings occur more and more and more. What is that all about? I think that these children are still going through the shock of the way we dealt with COVID, keeping people constantly in fear over something that had less than 1% chance of dying. It was the worst handled situation that I can think of. So sometimes auditory and visual hallucinations, like you're seeing something that really isn't there, or you're hearing something that isn't. Maybe what you heard was a car misfire and you thought it was a gunshot. A lot of times it's your memory responses that are taking over. And lots of times disrupted sleep or not being able to eat are a result of these. How about physical reactions to trauma? And these occur, like I said, after the fact. So increased heart rate, heart palpitations. You can have a smell that you identify. In other words, if you've been in a fire and somebody invites you into their home and they have this cheerful fireplace, the fire is going, and the smell of that fire puts you right back into the trauma that you experienced. Now you can have dry mouth, dilated pupils, higher pitched voice, stammering, increased muscle tension and or weakness, trembling. A lot of people will wake up and they're trembling because of a dream. Their subconscious mind is processing the trauma they've gone through. Now, sweaty palms aren't necessarily a reaction to trauma because, you know, I've shaken hands with people that have cold, sweaty hands, and it's a mineral deficiency. It isn't them dealing with stress or trauma. Now, butterflies in the stomach, you know, that can occur going on a public speaking or many, many different things. You can going on an airplane. So oversensitive to noise. My sister and I both deal with noise. And even though I have somewhat of a hearing difficulty, loud bangs, loud voices can still startle me. So, you know, who knows, maybe It's trauma that I haven't dealt with yet. Now, there's behavioral actions to trauma reactions, isolation and withdrawal. They just go in their room and close the door and curl up in a fetal position. But that doesn't solve the problem. Irritability, argumentative, or agitated. So here's the thing, if you don't allow somebody their emotional reactions, like you're trying to fix the problem instead of empathizing with them, you're going to drive that emotional reaction further. So we're going to talk about what you can do to help people. You know, these are reactions. They happen. And to move through these takes a little bit of being a solution person. So the first thing you want to do is understand and know how to work with the trauma discharge process. So what people have to do is shake it off, which may be trembling. I've been working with emotional healing for over 35 years. And it's interesting to see the response that people go through when the emotion's been released. I've had people swear and use the most foul language. I've had people get angry and move through their process, but it doesn't last long when they are processing it. I've had people tremble. Actually, I had one woman who looked like she was going through St. Vitus dance or some kind of a, ritual type thing where she would just shake and tremble and then it was over with. I've had people cry, just burst out in tears. And it's okay. They have to know they're in a safe place and it's okay. And you'll get through this, and you need to be empathetic when you're helping somebody move through these processes. So take slow, deep breaths yourself and let them know it's okay. They're in a safe place and they can let go. The discharge process now, discharge of the residual emotional tension from a freeze reaction takes place through expressions of anger, shouting, yelling, kicking, stomping one's feet. It's the 2-year-old going through a temper tantrum. Now, expressions of fear, shaking, trembling, pacing. A lot of people pace. They're just going back and forth, back and forth. Wringing one hand, running. Running can also be a discharge of the flight energy. In other words, that's how they're discharging their processes. A lot of people run and they feel so much better after they've run. Expressions of grief can be crying, moaning, wailing, sighing, screaming, which a discharge of helpless energy is feeling this pent up type of feeling. Now, laughter can be a discharge of feeling shame. And we went to a convention. It was a weekend convention talking about feelings. There was a psychiatrist, and unfortunately, I don't remember her name right now. We were in a U shape, and she sat in the space in front of the U. And she had this huge teddy bear she was hugging. And all of a sudden, we were just sitting down wondering what's the deal and what's going on, And all of a sudden she started laughing. And she laughed. People can laugh, and then because they're laughing, you laugh. She had this laugh that you just had to laugh with her. And by the end of it, couldn't have taken more than 10 minutes. But the end of the 10 minutes, we were laughing. Nobody was laughing at a particular thing. We really weren't laughing at her. We were just laughing. The whole weekend was spent talking about our embarrassing moments. And we had to talk about it until we could laugh about it. And I think that was really, really healthy, because a lot of times things stay inside and we keep pushing it down, pushing it down. And the laughter helps that bubble of embarrassment move up through this channel. And because you're using your diaphragm to laugh about it, the release can be so beneficial. So laughing about things can be really helpful. Now, there's a book called In an Unspoken Voice, and this quote is from that book. The shaking and trembling we experience following traumatic experiences are part of the innate process of resetting the nervous system and restoring our psyche to wholeness. If we become frightened by these sensations and resist them, we block our return to nervous equilibrium and mental and emotional wholeness. And the remaining trauma inside us becomes frozen. So this capacity for self-regulation holds the key for our modern survival. Beyond the brutal grip of anxiety, panic, night terrors, depression, physical symptoms, and helplessness that are the earmarks of prolonged stress and trauma. However, in order to experience this restorative faculty, we must develop the capacity to face certain uncomfortable, frightening, and might I say, embarrassing moments that have overwhelmed us. I read recently that 70% of Americans deal with depression. 70%, and it's higher for teenagers. This is horrible. And with depression comes anxiety. Well, helping others with remedies. Let's talk about what we can do. Natural remedies may help people deal with trauma and stress. Plants have energetic properties. Have you ever gone through a wooded area and just felt the calm, felt the relaxation, or at the seashore and heard the waves come in? This is nature connecting with us. We have energy and plants have energy. And oftentimes I feel God gave us these plants to heal our broken energy. So I have many videos on my YouTube channel that talks about herbs. Every week for 2022, I talked about the healing properties of herbs and individual herbs. So learn about these plants. Have some remedies on hand. You know, we have medicine in our medicine chest. We need to have remedies in our medicine chest. So capsicum taken under the tongue can bring you, it helps blood flow. It brings you out of shock. There's distress remedy, which helps. It's an emotional healing remedy that deals with energy. And it can help you move from your thoughts that are reeling around, going around, keep going and no resolution, to getting centered, getting a grip. It's a marvelous remedy. We'll talk a little bit more about it. Eucalyptus. Some people find that eucalyptus, peppermint, and pine are like the old time smelling salts. Put them on, put it on a tissue, let the person breathe it in, and it will bring it about. Even somebody who has fainted, peppermint has been known to revive the person. Peppermint has an energy that goes immediately to the brain, wakes up the brain. Then there's thyme and evergreen. The thyme helps with the immune system because the immune system is part of this HPA axis. It notifies the immune system, hey, get those fighters going. We need the fighter cells to deal with infection. And then, so thyme helps to key in the immune system. And wintergreen, what a pain relieving remedy wintergreen can be. So, distress remedy again, just having that one remedy on hand would be so beneficial. Excuse me. Kava kava has been known to calm lobelia. A lot of people have known about lobelia. Skullcap, blue vervain, red clover, lavender. A lot of people love lavender. Frankincense, myrrh, and sandalwood. Excuse me, I gotta take my water. So let's talk about distress remedy now. Many people know about rescue remedy, but I didn't like rescue remedy because of the base of alcohol. But there were people that couldn't tolerate it, and I couldn't give it to children. So distress remedy is a general remedy for restoring presence and awareness during shock or trauma. It helps one stay calm in a crisis situation, calms and soothes people suffering from emotional shock or trauma. And you can use it when a person has been physically injured to overcome shock and promote tissue healing. So it's just a great remedy. It's sweet. In fact, my grandchildren, when they were younger, used to call it their sweet drops because it just helped them remain calm. You know, they got stressed about something, maybe they got hurt or whatever, and I give them a couple of drops of a distress remedy and it would feel good again. In fact, you can use it with babies by putting it on the bottoms of their feet, and the energy from the distress remedy will actually help move through their feet and calm them down. So if you want to do some research on your own, you can look at Flower Essence Society and read what they have to say about Star of Bethlehem, Impatiens, Rock Rose, Clematis, Cherry Plum, Arnica, and Red Clover. We're going to talk a little bit about some of these. So remedies for stress and trauma recovery. You can get Arnica homeopathic, but like I said, it's in the distress remedy. Chamomile tea, a lot of people know the value of taking chamomile tea. There's a lot of people will find that they can sleep better at night if they take some chamomile tea before they go to bed. Chamomile also is an essential oil that I've used to help calm down. Like if there's a family situation, I will diffuse some chamomile and lavender together, and it creates a calm atmosphere. And lavender is also a great essential oil. Ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an herb that is beneficial for modulating the immune response. So in other words, it doesn't make the immune hyper or hypo. It actually supports the immune system in the healing process. And, you know, there are people that have immune deficiency and you can take ashwagandha and not affect autoimmune conditions or immune deficiency. Passion flower is also an herb that is beneficial. A lot of people will make remedies of it, and there are YouTube videos on how to do that. But you can also take the capsule itself, sprinkle a little bit on your tongue, and that's like a homeopathic remedy. Just opening the capsule and dumping a little bit under your tongue, you're using it homeopathically to calm the nervous system. It actually helps to calm the brain. Hops, we know how beneficial hops can be in calming. Valerian, I wouldn't put this under my tongue because I can't stand the smell of valerian, but some people like it even as a tea. I'll take it in capsule form, and kava kava, I've had some interesting things with kava kava. I've actually taken a bit of the capsule, opened it up, and put it on a tooth, and it went numb. So did the tongue near it, but it it was amazing how it worked. So let's talk about arnica. The flowers, roots, and leaves can be used as a homeopathic. You need to use this with caution. So it's toxic unless prepared properly. The tincture, when you use a prepared tincture, you can use 1 drop diluted in a cup of water. So that's how powerful it is. And you sip it slowly. Don't grab onto the thing and just, drink the thing down. I love it in the distress remedy because it's at the proper dosage. Now, this is great for non-bleeding injuries that helps to facilitate healing. It also helps a person deal with shock or trauma that is associated with injury or violence. It also helps people who are in disassociation and they're just moving through life as a zombie. They, the I don't care attitude. And if you are going to use it as a tincture, you need to use it for a short time and then stop using it. So it's not a tea that you would take on a nightly basis, like chamomile. So flower essence can also be used for recovery from past trauma, where the person has disconnected from a part of their body. So, a rape victim loses feeling in their extremities or their lower self. It can help people move through this energy. Red clover. Now, red clover is a beautiful flower. It you can use it as a tea. It has a lovely, lovely taste, or an extract or flower essence. It's in the distress remedy. So it helps people disconnect from the mob. You can see by the blooms, there's all of these individual people, but it's coming from one stem. And you have to not buy into the mob mentality because oftentimes that energy swoops you up and you do things you don't really want to do. So it helps a person to retain their calm, self-aware, and logical thought processes during a crisis or an emergency. And there's chamomile. I grow chamomile, love chamomile, did several videos on chamomile. And chamomile is calming to the nerves of people who are overreacting to small irritations. They make a mountain out of a molehill. They are peevish, complaining, wah, 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 whining and irritable. You know the people. It is especially helpful for irritated, distressed children. It can be used as an essential oil. So, in other words, maybe they don't like the tea. Well, you can dilute some in aloe vera and the gel and just apply it to their feet, just giving them a nice calm foot rub. So, children are extremely responsive to chamomile, but sometimes there's children of all ages. So it promotes a more even, sunny, or cheerful mood. Chamomile is easy to grow in the garden. I just love it. I have some growing right now in my winter sowing. So lavender is helpful for people whose nerves feel frayed or frazzled. It's a lovely scent. Now, some people don't like lavender. They're not fond of the scent. So that's, we have chamomile. We have choices. We have a lot of different remedies that can help different people. So it helps to balance the nervous system when a person is under stress, helping both anxiety and depression. So, this is such a helpful herb because it doesn't matter if you're anxious or stressed, or you don't have to label it. Just let them smell it. So it is a sedative, and it can be a great sleep aid. A lot of people would put the blooms, dry the blooms and put them in a little sack and slip it in their pillowcase. And it can help sleep that way. So lavender can be grown in the garden. You want to harvest the flowering herb. So here sometimes we need to pray for strength. And you can take a screenshot of this prayer. It's, Father God, my strength is gone. I am unable. But your word says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Give me your strength, not physical strength, but the power to move mountains that flows from faith in Jesus. Help me to depend on you to do what I think I cannot do. Let your strength alone sustain me. I hope this video has been helpful, and if it has, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. If you need to contact me, you can do so at Dr. Mary at bornforhealth.com. And until next time, this is Dr. Mary for the health of it.